I was in LA for meetings, and they declared a national emergency.
It was just mad that first week. It hadn't registered what lockdown meant at all to me.
I didn't think it was going to happen, not to the extent it did anyway.
First thing I thought was, shit, I'm going to be on my own for a long time. Shit, I don't especially like my own company, and shit, I hope I don't get ill when I'm on my own.
During that week I was away, I did notice that everything did start to wind down, and it did actually start to feel a lot more real. Restaurants were closing down, and the supermarkets were obviously starting to restrict what you could and couldn't buy, and, well, you couldn't really buy a lot because there was nothing there because everyone was panic buying.
My partner Rachel, her father's unwell, so she had a bag packed at the door. She drove on that night that it was announced before anything further was implemented, just to be safe to get there.
My eldest son was about to sit his GCSEs, and when he found out, within 48 hours was told he had to leave school without finishing exams, and that he would never return to school again. It was very, very overwhelming for him.
My family and I, we made the hard decision to leave London and come back to the United States. We flew out on the Monday on the last direct flight out before they canceled flights.
And he kept saying, I feel really strange, Mum. I don't know why I'm feeling like this. And he seemed quite tearful. And it's having that rug pulled from under your feet and not having chance to have closure on your school day and not being able to do the exams you've spent your whole high school life preparing for, and feeling you can't prove yourself.
Just as the lockdown was coming into place, I think, I went to work, but I remember being really, really hot.
My world had fallen apart. I got told I couldn't run my forest school anymore in Highgate Wood. I had no comprehension of how we were going to cope financially. I had no comprehension of anything.
The day before we did go home, I actually came down with something. I started to feel very sort of feverish and tired, exhausted. I felt very drained, shaky, and also I had no sense of smell, and that symptom lasted for about 2 weeks after.
I quickly had to readjust my thinking of the outdoors into trying to create something online that I'm totally dead against. I've rethought my entire business over 24 hours and then did my first live streaming session the day after on the Thursday.
Give us a wave, give us a wave!
Because I don't think I realised that I was that sick. It didn't really occur to me to take any notice of it, if you know what I mean. But Simon had spoken to me and figured something was wrong. Lawrence was coming in later on that day, so he got Lawrence to come in and assess me. And Lawrence just said, nah, he's not good. So I got a cab, got home, tried to make it up the stairs. I was a bit tired coming up the stairs, and then just basically collapsed on my bed. And then the next 2 or 3 days, I hardly moved, I think.
I work full-time at the moment as a bus driver. After my holiday, I didn't go back to work for that week because I was a little worried about what it could have been. And then luckily, the furlough scheme came in, so I was then able to voluntarily lay myself off. And this was a blessing because one of my dogs, who was very old, she was about 14, her health started to deteriorate. And so this gave me an opportunity to stay at home and look after her, which was lucky because within about 6 weeks she died, bless her.
On the Saturday, I did another online session from the woods. And then on the Sunday, somebody sent me an email saying that I should be showing a better example. And who did I think I was? And that night, on the Sunday, I made a decision that I wouldn't go back to the wood again. until this was over. And that's when we started doing the adventure club from the backyard. And that's when my whole mindset took a massive shift into a mental survival mode of how are we going to get through this in one piece as a family.
My youngest is in year 7 at high school, and he's having to really get stuck into homeschooling, and I'm having to facilitate that. And the first few weeks we were all very like, right, oh, come on, we got up, we had a routine. And one thing that changed is we all began to read together for the first time. We all would sit for an hour in the same room and read, and that never happened before.
We've been here in Pennsylvania existing in a sort of Groundhog Day, and it's been family time that I've never had the opportunity to experience before in terms of spending so much time with the kids. And each and every day we are doing activities in and around the house, planting trees and gardens, and it's been great. I'm actually going to miss this existence, but I also know it's not really reality. And a lot of people are going through a lot of hardship right now.
I never ever understood how important a child's friendships and playing and being a kid with his mates, it's such an essential part of his well-being and happiness, and every child's well-being and happiness is playing with their mates. And we can't give him that, and as much as we try, we can't do it, and that's been the hardest thing.
I remember getting up and going to the loo, and it's only like 20 paces away. And when you see these psychedelic films where people are taking psychedelic drugs and the walls go woo, and sort of they walk all crooked and everything else, and it's sort of a weird imagery. Basically, how I felt walking, I had to lean on the wall and get there, and then by the time I got to the loo, I'd have to spend about another 15-20 minutes psyching myself to get back up, to get to the bed. I'd just get back there and I'd just collapse on the bed.
Turns out my own company is not so bad after all. Eating lots of ice cream and talking to my cats. I've been trying to teach one of them to say hello. It's close, but it's not quite there yet.
I'm very different to a lot of people. I have 1,000,001 projects that I could be getting on with, and I have not been bored. I'm an amateur field recordist. I make music as well. I'm also...
You think with all this time you've got on your hands that you'd be getting so much achieved and accomplished, and that's not really been the case. It started off like that, but it's not, because there's a sense of waiting for this to end, and when is it going to end, and how are we going to come out of it?
I have spent an awful amount of time on Zoom. I've been speaking to this lovely man in America who works at Skywalker Sound, and he's sort of been looking after everybody and doing really regular meetings and seminars, like with Foley artists in Iceland or the Foley artists.
The Museum of Modern Art were offering free courses, and I thought, yeah, I can fit that in. We're on lockdown, and I haven't even gone near it, and I haven't watched all the free theatre that is on offer. And so after feeling overwhelmed with telling yourself you should be doing this and you should be doing that, I'm kind of just falling into just trying to be and take each day as it comes, and not be too hard on ourselves for what we're doing and what we're not doing, and just trying to keep mentally sane.
Alice came in and says, you should go to the hospital. And I was going, no, I'm all right, I'm fine. She goes, well, can we phone your doctors and just have a consultation with them? A few minutes later, Alice is on the phone with a video conference with my surgery. And so Alice was telling them what was going on. Of course, by then I was sort of like, couldn't breathe. I was like, I couldn't talk, I was breathless. So she got me up in the video. She said, can you walk? So I got up and did a bit of a walk, came back and collapsed on the bed. And she basically said, no, get him to hospital. So Alice and Salvo managed to get me dressed and down into the car and took me to the Royal Free. So some woman took me in the wheelchair, wheeled me into one of their little consulting rooms. She did a couple of little tests on me in that room, wheeled me around, to the isolation ward, I think it was. So they bunged me on a bed there, put me straight onto oxygen, rigged me up with various bits and pieces and a drip, gave me some medication, and then basically left me for 10 hours. I mean, they did come back, have a bit of a chat with me, find out what was going on, how I was feeling, and various other bits and pieces. And then eventually they took me up to a room, still attached to the drip, still on oxygen. So I was there for the night. And then the next morning they took me to a ward, and I was in a ward for probably about 8-9 days on oxygen. And they decreased the oxygen, obviously, as my stats started to go up, I guess. They decreased the oxygen to the point where they discharged me.
One thing I do miss, and that's my church bells. I am a church bell ringer. I'm also doing this large-scale sound recording project capturing the sounds of all the church bells in Norfolk. Church bells, to me, that's my social life. We all go to these bell towers and we're all just a big community of friends. And given the situation, we can't go to churches and meet up and ring bells because of the social distancing restrictions. Church bell ropes, they're wonderful territory for growing germs. And I think it's going to be some time before we're able to partake in our craft again, which is a bit of a shame.
A friend has been doing this online project called Ambient Isolation, and he's had contributors from all over the world. So I've been recording ambiences while we've got this quiet time. So while I've been trying to record like lovely dawn choruses and like the sounds of Walthamstow, I've actually picked up quite a few arguments from my neighbours.
In terms of where I live, there's a lot of second homeowners, and there's been a lot of animosity I felt in the community because second homeowners have been coming up and down when they shouldn't have been, and because they've got the kind of courage or the balls, as it were, just to come and spend the whole day when there's no public toilets opened. People are leaving human excrement on beaches and rubbish everywhere and kind of violating this beautiful area because they want to get out and they feel penned in, but it's really difficult to see that and not to feel angry.
London has become a village. As the mist cleared, I could hear that London was peaceful. When we did step out, people said hello to each other, which you get up in a village, as I know. But in London, everybody was just too busy. You didn't hear sirens, and you can tell it's going back to normal a bit. We live in a complex of a few flats. We now all know each other, and we want to have a party when we can.
My mum discovered FaceTime and she never knew it, and we would speak to each other on a Sunday, and now we see each other, which we never did before, and it's like it opened up a whole new world for my mum. She can't get enough of FaceTime. She doesn't always get the angle quite right. So that's a really interesting kind of, benefit, I think, that's come from lockdown.
Hang on, Sam's here. What do you want, Sam?
Feel how sharp the great white shark's tooth is.
How sharp the great white tooth is? Hang on.
Going back to my adventure club, I never thought that Sam was going to become such a huge part of it, and it was going to be online and what have you. And I don't want to let go of that now. I think we'll carry on doing an episode of Sally and Sam's Adventure Club online as long as Sam wants to, every month or something, because people have really loved it and they've seen it as their little rock throughout this. It's given them a sense of routine, which has been really, really rewarding.
I'm kind of all right now, but the lungs are definitely affected. I think it's going to take a little while for me to get that sorted out. Many, many years ago, we did this thing in the Navy. We were in a simulator and we took our masks off at a certain point, and they were testing to see how long it would take before you started having the effects of hypoxia, which is the lack of oxygen going to your brain, I think. Only a couple of minutes worth, but possibly felt like that, I guess. As I say, I'm no medical expert on this sort of stuff, but I say that's basically what happened to me.
I've quite enjoyed my time in social confinement. I probably work best that way anyway. I don't really like being around large groups of people, and as long as I can indulge in something that interests me, I'm, happy as Larry.
One of these Foley Zooms I attended, it was two producers that had worked on quite high-profile things, saying don't count on anything that was supposed to happen this summer happening now unless it was already started, and don't even expect it to happen early next year. It'll be like next summer, if at all.
The theatre world has been severely hit the hardest, and ticket prices are going to have to rise if shows go back out, and it's really hard. I don't really know what's going to happen, and that brings a certain amount of anxiety because we're in limbo and we don't know what's going to happen.
It has tested us at times, but we feel pretty lucky to be able to have this time with the kids. And we'll see what the future brings. We're not out of this yet. So things are opening up here. I think it's a bit premature, but I also understand that some things have to get going again for the sake of the economy and people's welfare. So wish for the best, hope for some kind of a vaccine to come through maybe by the end of the year or early next year. Wishful thinking. And I better get back to these guys. They're building a fort out of our couch right now. So
No, we are making a slide.
all right, say bye.
Bye, and we're making a slide.
Say bye.
Bye.
All right, thank you.
Hang